Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast, with your industry veteran hosts, Michael Sandoval and Chris Tetzel. This podcast starts now. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers. I'm one of your guests, Michael Sandoval.
You're actually a host, but I'm the other host, Chris
Yeah,
Tetzel.
I know. That's funny. I had to pause there for a moment. I was like, guest, host. Yeah. I'm one of your hosts.
Yeah. Today's guest is Michael Sandoval.
This is what happens when you eat too much turkey.
Ooh, well, I ate a lot of turkey, so it's a week or so after Thanksgiving, right? So
yeah. Did you have a good one?
Yeah, man. We went to Vermont. My wife and son. We spent some time there and got to. It was Burlington, Vermont, actually, and spent 3 or 4 days there. It's pretty cool. Nice and
Did
cold.
you go downtown? Burlington has like a. Or I get it confused with New Hampshire.
We did go downtown. We actually stayed downtown, but yeah, it was pretty cool, man. Nice and cold, and it's like it was so funny because it was so cold. It's kind of windy, and it's right there by this big lake. And my wife would be like, "Hey, do you want to go into this makeup store or whatever store that I'm not or bookstore?" And I'm like, yes, I do, because it's so cool out here. I do not want to go stay out. And usually I'd be like,
it depends. I'll wait outside. Is it
heated? Yeah, is it heated? Of course it's heated. So no, it was a good time. So
that's how I know I'm spoiled with where we are in the world.
Yeah. El
because
Paso,
we get cold and we're like, oh, it's cute because it's nice, it's wintry, but then you go inside and you're fine. There isn't any ice, there isn't any snow, that it doesn't bite in your skin. But when you're up there, it's ridiculous. I remember visiting one time, but I was there for what they call leaf peeping season, just to see the leaves. And it was in New Hampshire, and it was already cold. This is like late September, early October.
Really?
Yeah, and. Yeah, I was like,
wait, leaves? I don't.
They call it leaf peeping, like peeping. Yeah,
yeah.
And of course, in the
leaves,
they call them, leaf peeper.
So it's just kind of the changing of the winter,
the changing of the leaves.
Or, the leaves of in the winter,
maple leaves and all that stuff. It's actually really beautiful, but
we saw a lot of that, right? Like, most of them are pretty brown, but still some leaves falling from the sky. And then when we went through North Carolina, we saw some of that too. That was pretty cool.
That's cool. When'd you go to North Carolina?
Well,
because you had to land there to go up north, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I am going there in a couple weeks to Asheville, North Carolina.
Nice.
For a week off.
It's becoming a bit of a mecca for some of the digital stuff.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know that we wanted to talk a little bit about, engagement and how do we engage users digitally, right? So whether it's through e-commerce or whether it's through, communities and those kinds of things. And so what I wanted to talk about, and I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, is, there's a lot of ways to engage your users. One is, and we've talked about this one a lot, and we won't beat this dead horse anymore, but about the webinar program and how do you engage users and create content and all these other things, which is kind of a, 5 birds, 1 stone type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really why I do it. But there's a lot of other things that you can think about as, from a community standpoint. I think of rewards recognition, leaderboard. I think of, even in app or in the platform kind of emails that go out personalized and things like that, to really get people to do certain things that you want them to do. And I think that's sort of on an e-commerce way, and you can talk more about that if you want. But so I want to talk, maybe a little bit deeply about maybe one of those engagement type things, and maybe even because I know it's one of the hardest things to do with communities is to engage your users digitally and get them to answer questions and all that other stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good one. Like in my head, as I started thinking about it, as you were talking through it, and I know it's going to sound familiar, but like, oh, those are good tactics, Chris.
No. Good point.
Like strategically, how do you create an engagement strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of permeates throughout everything, right? And I was kind of generalizing. I was thinking about a couple things, right? We started a little bit of this on the pre-show. One of the things I think about is, what are you doing to make a community member feel wanted,
Mm.
right? Um, and that's around. I think we talk about response time. We that the that we uh, that there's a methodology where they feel they can express themselves, that they feel open to talk, and that's just first before you start talking about these other things.
Got it.
Um, uh, the second thing in my head is not every uh, member is going to want to talk.
Yep.
So I was thinking about segmentation. How do you segment your audience in the community to give them the channel that they wish to speak in, right? Some
Mm.
folks are great in forums, some folks are great in comments, some folks are just there just to absorb information, but
Yeah.
you that's
It's
still an
true.
engagement, right?
Yeah.
Reading, looking, searching is still
Liking.
an engagement. So how do you say, hey, from those who are actives, they're very engaged. Those who are you know, passerbyers, whatever, they're very engaged because of these metrics. That kind of been through my head. And I think the last one is around, okay, great. If you have those two solved, then what are the things that are driving? Those are your tactic stuff, how,
Stuff I just mentioned.
yeah. So that's kind of started in my head, your thoughts. But maybe I'll turn to you a little bit and kind of in your community, how do you create an environment that's um, open to speak with? How good are your response rates? How good are folks
Yeah.
replying?
Yeah. I think there's a few things there. One is,
Maybe just
uh,
stop there. What do you think about those thoughts I just said?
no, I really like it. I like how you're bringing it up to another level, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's some of the same things you are. You have to have a strategy around engagement. What problems are you trying to solve through this engagement strategy, and then what are the tactics to go drive that? So I just me, I like to just start thinking, what can I go do right now to
No,
make
I
some of
totally
this
get it. Don't
happen?
worry. I
Like, but I get, I agree with you, and I think that one the things that I always say is one, nobody wants to go to a party that no one's at. So if somebody's
believe
posting something,
100% about that. Yeah.
if somebody's posting and there's no replies and that kind of stuff. So I think
Yeah.
one is you got to have some kind of uh, uh, quick response rates. So whether it's
Yeah.
some of the smart people of employees, or if you can
Yep.
get customers or partners or somebody else to respond. Today, um, our response rate is about 20 hours, which generally I say 48 hours is a good thing. Um,
Mm-mm.
a lot of when you look at support tickets in industries like ours, so customer creates a support ticket from open then to close, that could be about 10 to 13 days. So it sounds like a long time compared to the community, right? So you can take away all those quick hit. We don't have to get into this piece, but those quick hit questions and answers to where they can find that stuff on community, and then they can go solve the bigger problems. Um,
Mm.
so I think response rate is a good one, and I think it's important, and kind of thinking that. And then what problem are you trying to solve? At the end of the day, I want questions to be answered fast. I want them to be able to trust in the answer
You
that they
said it. I
get.
was waiting for you to say it. That's
Yeah,
exactly what you're trying to do.
trust.
That is what creates a strong engagement strategy is trust.
Yeah,
These guys
I
have to
gotta
trust you.
have to talk it out loud. Um,
No, no, but it's
so,
it's critical. You just said it like that. If I come to a forum and I look and I start, like, okay, it looks promising. You know,
yep,
part of it is acquisition. You're absolutely right. Acquisition strategy around SEO, SEM, however you want to do it,
yeah,
word of mouth, whatever. They came to your community,
yeah,
and now you have to. That's your opportunity to begin building that trust. Part of that trust is to look to see whether or not it's an empty party. Okay, hey, it looks kind of happening. I'm here. Okay, now I'm going to do this effort of physically making a question. If you think about it, it's a
hmm
huge friction point,
I
right?
agree.
I have to
I
log in.
remember I remember having this conversation with you a lot, and I say these things a lot too to people. It's so funny.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think when we talk about engagement, that remember part of the beginning of your engagement strategy is your on ramping.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is the beginning. That's your first touch point. That's like, how easy is it me to get involved? How quick are you getting me to make your first post? What does that first engagement look like? And I think we even talked about it in our past of maybe
Hmm.
the first engagement is a soft ask.
Yep.
The soft ask is search.
Yep.
The soft ask is upload your photo.
Hmm.
And so maybe, looking at it in time of how do you nurture a person to go to be a high level engager.
Yeah. And
And
like you said, not everybody will engage, but
no,
people
you're right.
will look and find it. But we
Yep,
got to find those people that will engage is
exactly.
part of the
Yeah,
key, right?
exactly correct. Um, but that's the beginning of kind of beginning you're segmenting this
Kind
person.
of
It's
that
like, oh, okay,
journey.
this person's coming in. They just want to search. They want to do some things. No worries. I have tactics to keep them engaged in this rung
Mm.
ad infinitum, right? And if they begin taking the next steps, you start to smell that propensity to say the next step. Then you say, hey, let's move this person, to the next level of engagement, which is answering or participating. Uh, we even talked about some of these tactics. One of those tactics are, here are some unanswered questions.
Hmm.
I challenge you smart folks out there. You know the answer, and that was an engagement strategy or tactic, actually, not strategy, uh, to challenge the alpha
Yeah.
uh, in somebody. We're like, oh yeah, I know this stuff, and then and and from the pool of people who are just the lurkers, pops, right,
Yeah.
and then being able to nurture that person into the next rung, right, and that's when you think about engagement strategy, that's what it's in my head is how do you move people further down the engagement path. Um, Otherwise, you keep everybody down here,
Mm.
right? And it's funny because not funny, but your tactic thought is actually the push up, right?
Yeah.
So you talked about things like, yes, a webinar is an engagement strategy, or I'm sorry, an engagement tactic.
Yep.
But what it does is moving some people who find that interesting into the next step.
That's right.
Um,
It's a
Another
different way to engage, right? So some of these are
exactly,
just attending. I'll get 60 or 70 people, and that's good. And they'll ask a lot of questions there, but they're not asking them here in the community. But that's okay because they're still engaging in the community. But
exactly,
at the end of the day, I got to tie that back together, right? To
one
say
hundred
they're
percent.
still engaging. That's the hard part because none of these systems are tied together, and I have to
Yep,
use Excel and some bullshit.
yep.
But yeah, I like that.
And other things I think about is it is. I wouldn't say the word easy, but the big bangs are the ones you want to drive, right? Reward and recognition
Yeah.
systems, um, contributor of the month,
Yeah.
these kind of big things, programs you might want to put in place. But really kind of keeping that pool of people who are always coming in to
Mm.
come back again and again is really the base foundation soup. And I think we remember we were working together. One of the things I wanted to help drive was just getting someone to like
Yeah.
a post. Like my first my first push in an engagement strategy is just to do the basics, like a post, um, uh, uh, looking at how many times people search for something, uh, how often are they looking at a post, right? These very simple things to say if these begin to drop off, then I need to change the behavior.
Yeah.
I even looked at average activity per user to see whether or not over time, as new people came in, was I able to maintain an activity rate? Because that told me that no matter if I'm growing, if I'm still able to keep or maintain or increase engagement, and I mean
Yep.
engagement very specifically, um, then I'm doing good. Another thing I'll talk about
Yeah.
is uh, very similar to conversions in the digital side, where you want to look at what are our top conversions and our micro conversions that drive some of the big conversions.
Mhm.
in a proper e-commerce organization, the one conversion obviously is sale, right? An actual move to cart and then cart to purchase. And but there are some other kind of micro conversions that are part to tell the story whether or not that big conversion is going to happen. Number of times they view a product,
Hmm.
if they viewed a review. Um, in some way, you're doing the same thing. The holy grail in a community for you could be two things. One is posting and responding, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot for somebody to do those two things. But what are some of the micro conversions that are driving that behavior?
Login.
Um, yeah, you got it. Yeah, they were these small micro conversions. We would chart how many logins per session per
Second
day, how
login.
many likes per total activity. You can set up these key metrics, simple five, nothing extravagant. You can do this as a bulk. You can call it your engagement index, and your engagement index is made up of these five micro conversions that say if this engagement index increases over time, I know that I'm driving good behavior.
Hmm.
The next tactic is taking those who are doing this engagement index and then grading that. So you're saying, hey, of my total community, I have some community members who are driving my index pretty high.
Yeah.
They are primed to take the next step of engagement.
And do you create? So I've got questions about how to the tactics to drive some of that. So, for example, you said, maybe the number of likes that people come in, or the number of logins, or
Mhm.
whatever. And so, um, what I kind of think of is to help drive that is kind of personalized emails that say, "Hey, it looks like you've been looking at this art. Do you have specific questions? If you do, ask," or whatever. It's those personalized emails that say you're doing these things. Why don't you do this? Or you might like this,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, you
Okay.
can talk to them as passive and active engagers, right? So, an active engager is they come to the site, they do these things. A passive engager, and I think when we were together, you did some of this, which was, I think you did like I don't know if the right word was like a newsletter, but you
Yeah.
would take curated content and push it out to those who didn't quite come to the site, but they were consuming that information,
Hmm.
right? Um, Personalizing content is another element. You get a drop off if they have hit unsubscribe, but we didn't get any high unsubscribes, if
Hmm.
memory serves.
No, I don't
So
either.
clearly they were passive engagers, right?
Yeah.
And then you can treat it like any other tactic. You can say, did they click on the link to go to the community? Those kind of things. You can judge whether or not passive engagement is working. But yeah, that was the tactic I remember you doing, that you can kind of take the community to them in some way. Another
Yeah.
one that I know we were working on, that's another engagement strategy, is being able to get responses in your email, right?
Yep.
You don't have to come to the community to go respond to something. You can kind of get a digest, you know.
Yep. No, that happens today. So there's three things that you can help me think about as in their tactics. But one of the tactics is, like you said, reply by email. So somebody gets, an email that says, "Hey, this person said this thing." You could just reply by your email. I've seen some of that, but I haven't driven that activity. Like people just figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that I could drive. The other piece um, and we just got this feature or functionality. I don't know what you call it, but it's an app for the community itself. So, I think it's like a 80/20. So 80 use desktop, 20% use mobile. So it's not really, but an app could change everything. But the app has to be good. At this point, the app has some work that has to be done. But
Mm.
because there's a whole process just to download it. And I'm like, okay, look, you have to put this, you go here, download this. It has nothing about Reltio. Then you put in this URL, then you do this. And I'm like, that's too much to tell people to
Yeah,
know
that's a lot of
to do.
friction. That's hard.
It's like, fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity. So if they get better with their app, over this next year, or if we think that that's going to be a big push, that data people are using apps, then maybe we kind of look at that. But that's an opportunity, to really drive engagement if you can get in-app emails or notifications, which it does. But again, the friction to actually download it, get Reltio content is somewhat of I had to build this whole how-to thing, to do it. And I'm like, God damn, like nobody's
Oh
gonna do
yeah,
that.
that's a barrier.
Just not gonna do it,
No.
But anyways, that's another conversation. But still, there's opportunities to get people to do certain things, like you said, to drive certain actions. I think I only said two. I can't remember the third one because I just get into that too much. But
No, but you do bring up a good point as part of this kind of engagement discussion is around the mobile piece.
yeah,
Um, I know you know, when we were together, one of the things we were starting to think about is how does mobile change the engagement paradigm? One of the things was this feature of the phone camera that
hmm,
was in app. And remember, we
yeah,
said, "Hey,
that's right.
take a picture of a part. If you don't know what it is, we will try
Yeah,
to find it for you."
same stuff.
That was a total 100% unfederated engagement tactic that we were trying to use, so that we
And
were
it was the
getting
hardest
those.
thing to build. It was ridiculous.
It is, and
Couldn't figure it out.
couldn't figure it out. And you're probably running the same system, same problem, which is some of these community apps, they're just a wrapper for the
That's
website.
right. That's all it
And
is.
it you
Yeah,
need to have a native community app. If anyone's listening, build it
that's right.
to
Well,
help drive that.
Here's what they do offer is a third party company that helped build it to just go in and do it, for X number of
Of
dollars.
course.
So it's like, okay, well, why do you even have this? Anyways, it's like, so no, this has been good. I think you really brought it up to the level that we should think about,
That's what I do.
higher level, right? Well,
Yeah,
no,
no, but
I think it's important.
yeah, it's a good way to kind of structure it because I look at engagement like a journey.
Yeah,
You don't just get someone to engage; you build that trust to engage, and therefore, it's a timeline, not an event. So the timeline has to begin this idea of first is get in, nurture, and then move up, right? Kind of move in that direction. And the beginning of this engagement strategy is around your onboarding.
hmm,
That begins your trust factor. So this is about response, your moderation strategy, how well you're getting folks in front of them, the quality of the answer. That's the beginning of your engagement strategy. Then this idea of
I agree with that.
segmentation, right? How do you begin to look at all these little micro engagements, creating an index to understand how well they're staying, and then looking at those individuals to see what is the right opportunity for me to move them up. And then you
Hmm.
define what is moving up. For my community, it's a webinar or a reward recognition. And this is where you have to know the community itself to understand what that's going to push that person to the next level.
Yeah, it's pretty stressful talking to you sometimes, but this is good.
It's like,
That's
wait a minute, I thought
really,
I was
really good.
gonna do this stuff, and now I got to think about timelines and shit.
Yeah, some bullshit index. Um,
Some bullshit index.
no, to be honest with you, like it is kind of stressful, but it makes me kind of think about some of the things I've done, right? So I think a little bit over. So I've done some good stuff, no doubt
Yeah,
about it, right? But I've done some stuff over here. I've done some stuff over here and stuff over here. Instead of focusing in on, let's say, that customer journey from the very beginning, like
yeah.
I really feel like I've done a really good job of getting really good answers, which is very helpful. I've done a good
You
job
have,
of
yeah,
getting some of the right people to answer the questions.
yep.
And customers really appreciate that. But what I haven't done a good job, and I have been focusing in on it, but I do need to do a better job is kind of that beginning journey of just that personalization of when a user first logs into the community, what kinds of things can I build from that journey, and
Yep.
then kind of focus maniacally on that piece for the
Yep.
next 90 days. What are the things that are going well, like do these things, and then you go to the next tactic. It's a big program tactic, like you said. I'm doing webinars. I'm doing this and that and the other. So it's a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but anyways, this was good, man. I really appreciate you kind of bringing it up a little
No,
bit
yeah, no,
and
it's
stressing me out a little bit. But that's good.
I didn't mean to.
No, but it really, no, I
I,
learned something
if
every time I
if I
talk
can
to you. So
reassure you on something, you're
yeah,
well ahead of your engagement strategy, right? I
yeah.
actually do think from what we've been talking about, you do really good about getting people in and getting an answer to them. That's your first step. Uh,
Yeah, and I think that's key. There's some things I do a really good job at, but there's also things I need to work on. I think we all
yeah,
do, right? So, um,
yeah, same here.
I'm sure. Yeah, we just don't want to expose all of those on something live. So, all right, brother.
Okay, my friend. As always, great talking to you. Until next time, I'm one of your instead of guest hosts for for beers over beers. My name is Michael Sandoval.
And I'm the other guest, Chris Detzel.
All right, Chris. I'll see you later.
All right.